What's going on, my dudes? It's your boy, Beardson Beardly here, with the first game review for the gaming channel here. I know I haven't been putting a lot of content on the channel lately, mainly because there's just not a lot going on, but now we have something to talk about. Look, I'm not going to be a guy that just puts out content just to put it out. I'm not going to sit here and talk for 15, 20 minutes about how Battlefield got delayed, because I can sum it up in a sentence and it sucks, but, they do what they got to do, whatever. There it is. There's the video, right? But now we actually have a game that I actually really want to talk about, because it apparently is the best game ever created, of all time ever. It is going to win all of the Game of the Year awards. It's called Deathloop. And we streamed it a couple nights, and I played it, and I want to give you my thoughts and my opinions on Deathloop. So just a little backstory and history, okay? Deathloop is made by Arcane Studios, the people that have brought you such wonderful titles such as Dishonored 1 and 2, Death of the Outsider, and Prey. And I didn't really care for any of those games, to be honest with you. Dishonored, the first Dishonored, I wouldn't say is a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not a good stealth game. The reason why it's not a good stealth game is because I really felt like the powers were a little overpowered, and I didn't really like the level design for a lot of the places. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't a bad game. Just wasn't my favorite. I didn't bother to play Dishonored 2. I didn't bother to play Death of the Outsider. I did, however, bother to play Prey, and I felt like, well, it was all right. Much like I felt like with Dishonored. I felt like Prey was a solid 7 out of 10 BioShock clone. And I do love me a nice first-person narrative game with activities such as lockpicking and stealth, things like that. I really do enjoy games like that. Prey, you get about halfway through it, and then it just takes a nosedive in terms of its narrative, in terms of the gameplay, and the level design. First half, I probably would give it an 8 or a 9, honestly. I really enjoyed the first half of the game, and then the last half of the game was a total slog. I never even bothered to finish it, to be honest with you. So basically what I'm saying is my history with Arcane Studios games, they're okay. I don't really get the hype surrounding a lot of their products. I don't really get the hype surrounding, their caliber as a game dev. I don't think they're a terrible game developer by any stretch of the imagination, but I've never really understood all of the critical acclaim that this studio has really gotten. I feel like all of their games are watered-down versions of other games such as Thief or BioShock, and obviously those games are far, far superior, in my opinion. So when Deathloop was coming out, I wasn't really excited for it. I was like, I might play it, I might not. We'll see. And, of course, I ended up getting it because there's absolutely nothing to play right now. And, they're 3 for 3 in the mid department, in my opinion. Deathloop is a game about looping. Basically, you live throughout one day, and your goal is to kill 8 people and break the loop, right? Simple enough. And actually, to be honest with you, I was actually kind of hyped for this premise, because what I was expecting going into it was kind of like a Majora's Mask-esque game, where you have a timer and you have to figure out a way to kill all of these 8 people in one run, right? And I was expecting you to have to learn things as you play, and you use that knowledge as a progression tool, right? I love games when you get to do stuff like that, where you get to use actual knowledge as a progression tool. Games like, Dark Souls does it really well. Majora's Mask, of course. There's very few games really that do these kinds of things and do it well. And that's what I was expecting, honestly. And I figured also, of course, you'd get different powers and things like that, which would help you kind of speed run the process a little bit further. Instead, what we got was a game with 4 levels that you play over and over and over again. Of course, the way that it works is pretty simple. You play a level, that's morning, then you zone out. You play another level, that's afternoon, and then you zone out. Then you play another level, and it's evening, and then you zone out, and then you play another level, and it's night. So you basically have 4 levels that you play, and they only give you 4 levels, by the way, also just to point this out. So it gets pretty monotonous pretty fast, honestly. The levels themselves, they are pretty big. Yeah, and they're fairly well designed, really. I mean, I really have no complaints in terms of the design of the levels. It's just there is absolutely no reason at all to explore any of these levels at all. There's maybe a couple secrets here and there where it's like, oh, find the glyphs or something, and you'll open a chest, or figure out a password to this door, and there might be a piece of loot in there or something. But oftentimes, you've probably already gotten something better. And to be honest with you, it's just not very exciting or fun. You're not actually using your brain for any of this stuff, really. It's just a matter of find the code on a piece of paper and then type it in on a door. And that's all that there is. Exploring the environments quickly makes you realize that they're very bland and empty. There's not a whole lot going on with them. There's no reason. You're not incentivized to explore these environments at all. You're incentivized to get in, kill the boss, grab the loot, and then leave. And I hate that. I hate that about this game, because if you're going to put all this time and effort into these, I mean, really, honestly, some of the environments are great. Like the nightclub, I actually really enjoyed. There's an area where you get to go into a nightclub, and that place was awesome. It was really cool, and aesthetically, I mean, I really liked the 60s, 70s aesthetic of the game and stuff. But what's the point of doing all of this exactly? I've what lore? To be honest with you, with the story, I could care less. I don't really care for either one of the characters. I don't really care for any of the characters in this game, to be honest with you, because their entire character arc consists of them making Marvel-esque or Borderlands-esque quips at one another the entire time. That's really it. If you were to ask me what the story was of this game, to be honest with you, I cared so little that I didn't even bother reading any of the notes or anything like that at a certain point. I tried to at first because it was interesting. I was like, why are they looping on this island? And then there's this shady corporation and stuff. And I just really stopped caring at a certain point because, again, most of the time, the characters Juliana and Colt. Colt is who you play as for a majority of the time. You can play as Juliana in the PvP mode, which I'm going to get into that later. But their whole interaction with each other is just joking and negging each other, basically. That's all that they do is just talk shit to each other. There's no, character development. I don't feel like there's any real human beings behind this stuff. It feels like two claptraps talking at one another, and really unfortunate because, again, the premise is really cool, but the execution has left me very, very much wanting. Very much wanting. Now, I guess we should get to the meat and potatoes here of this, which is the actual game itself, the gameplay. It's okay. This game really can't decide whether or not it wants to be a stealth game or an action game, and it kind of just does both things mediocrely. I mean, really, just very mid. Let's get into the stealth, for instance. There is absolutely no incentive at all for stealthing. None. I mean, there's none at all. And it's incredibly easy to do because all of the bodies immediately disappear upon you killing them. I mean, you can literally just sit in a bush and then just start shooting everybody. Because on top of this, the AI is very poor. Very, very poor. They will just stand there and let you kill them. I've never quite seen AI quite as bad as this since maybe Alien Colonial Marines. I mean, it's really not that good at all. I wasn't very impressed with the AI. There's no difficulty options either at all. You can't turn it to easy. You can't turn it to hard. I was really looking forward to maybe turning it up a little bit, and maybe the enemies would be a little bit more challenging. That option doesn't exist. It's not there. You're stuck with one difficulty. So I guess what they decided to do was put everybody on Game Journalist difficulty, which is probably why Game Journalists are giving this 10 out of 10. Well, besides the fact that Arcane and Bethesda paid for advertising revenue on every single one of these websites, that's giving it a 10 out of 10. But that must be just a coincidence, right? Whenever I boot up IGN.com and I see a big banner for Deathloop and it plays the trailer, and then right below that is the is the review. I'm sure that's not at all paid advertising. That's just, they just love the game and they like doing these things out of the goodness of their hearts, right? I don't really know what point the stealth has in this game. I mean, I really don't. And again, I love stealth games. I love Thief. I love Splinter Cell. I love Metal Gear Solid. I love stealth games. I mean, I miss stealth games, to be honest with you. We don't get a whole lot of stealth games anymore, right? And so I was looking forward to maybe having a game where I could stealth around and be rewarded for it. And instead, it's just boring. I mean, you're better off just running and gunning, really. And even then, most of the time when you're running and gunning, the enemy's not going to detect you. They're not going to sound an alarm or anything like that. You're just going to get swarmed with enemies. Because, again, the AI is very poor. They have radios, some of them, but I've never seen one actually get used in my time playing this game. I've never actually seen one of the radios get used at all. You just shoot the people in the head, and then that's it, plain and simple. And it's a one shot to the headshot, by the way. It's it. They're dead. So you're really just better off just running and gunning, just kind of speeding through the level and kind of avoid enemies when you can, but don't worry about it too much because they're not going to present you with really any challenge at all. It's very poor, very poorly done, and especially, from the people that brought us Dishonored, I would at least have expected some type of reward for stealthing around, but you have no incentive to do it at all. None. There's no single incentive to stealth around. And really, honestly, even shooting everybody, there's no incentive either. There's just no, there's this open idea of, you can play how you want, but it just feels boring. Especially when there's no challenge involved and when you can't customize any challenge for yourself, in a lot of stealth games, they reward you at least for not being detected. They reward you for going through the entire level without killing anybody or knocking anybody out, things like that. You don't get anything like that here in Deathloop. I mean, you just play the game how you want and your reward is progression, which you would be able to accomplish no matter what you did. Really, it sucks. As far as the action gameplay goes and the shooting, I mean, the shooting feels fine. Some of the guns are kind of cool. But there's not a whole lot of guns either. There seems to be about maybe 4 or 5 guns in the game. And they do have different perks and things like that. There's a Borderlands or Diablo style loot system where there's gray, blue, purple, and orange loot. There's some unique legendary weapons that are basically just, this is a gun and now it has this perk on it, which gets kind of old after a while. But you're able to customize them with weapon mods and things like that, which are mainly pretty boilerplate. Nothing too really crazy to showcase. Increases your fire rate, increases your reload speed, increases your aim down sight time. Basically, just Call of Duty attachments. And I feel like that's a big missed opportunity too, because in a lot of ways this game should be called a roguelike, right? I mean, that's kind of how it is. You go on a run, you get currency, and you use that currency to spend on your items and your perks that you accumulate throughout a run, so in order to keep them forever, right, to make them permanent, which is a cool system. I actually really like that system a lot. It's a really cool system. The problem with it is that you end up getting the best guns in the game very early on, and you spend your currency on it, and then you're like, well, I don't need to pick up any other guns. In the whole game, I've got my 3 guns. Why even, again, this is just another reason why you have no reason to explore the environment at all. Because it's you've gotten everything so early, because if you go kill the bosses, they drop really good loot, right? And then you just use your residuum on that and keep it forever. And then it's what's the point now, right? They have these things called slabs, which are basically your powers from Dishonored. And, a lot of them are pretty much ripped straight out of that game. You spend residuum on those to keep those as well. Basically the only 2 that you're going to use, though, is the invisibility one and the teleport one. The rest of them are very boring. There's one where it's you can link 2 enemies together and you do damage to one, it damages them both. And it's I could just shoot them both in the head with 2 bullets and then that's GG. Why am I going to go through all these extra steps to do that? It makes really no sense to me at all. I don't know what the point of this power is exactly. It really just not very thought out. doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally. Why I would ever use that. But there it is, there it is. There's one where it's mainly just like a telekinesis ability, it's a pretty standard boilerplate, you just shove somebody against a wall, that sort of thing. That's okay, I guess. But again, you're mainly just going to want to use the invisibility and the teleport, the little... Because what other... I mean, it's honestly just kind of... There's one where it's like, oh, you do more damage. Again, this is a game where you shoot an enemy in the head and they die instantly. So I'm not really seeing any motivation at all for me to want to do more damage when I haven't been faced with any sort of challenge at all in this game whatsoever. Yeah, a lot of the powers are big missed opportunities for me. You can also get abilities to augment those powers, but most of them are pretty boring. Really, to be honest with you. There's one where I got for my teleport where I can kick them while I'm teleporting. If I teleport onto somebody, I kick them. Why would I want to do that? Though, I mean, again, and I hate to reiterate this or repeat myself, but why would I bother doing that when I can just shoot them in the head once and they're dead? I don't know. I don't really know, but yeah, I mean, the game isn't bad. I know I'm coming off as like really negative and stuff, but the game is fun for maybe the first 5-6 hours or so, and then it just gets really monotonous. The objectives that the whole looping idea is that you're trying to kill all 8 people in one loop, so that way you can break the loop. And again, when I was talking, what I expected from this game was like it's going to be a big open world. And I would have to use my knowledge, by going and killing each one and then learning about them and things like that, and use all that knowledge to figure out a way to kill them all in one loop, right? And instead, what this game's turned into is basically you read a note and then there's a little objective marker on the map that tells you what you need to do. That's it. There's no real critical thinking involved at all. There's no like using knowledge that you have to advance through the game, a la Dark Souls or Majora's Mask or anything like that. It's just pick your objective out of a list of objectives and then follow the dot. And that's it. I hate it. I really hate it. I mean, this is such a missed opportunity for me in terms of gameplay and exploration. Because I will say, I mean, the base game itself is fun. But the problem is the stealth is terrible. And I mean, honestly, they should just, I mean, if you want to make an action game, just make an action game. Remove the stealth completely out of the game. Because, I mean, the systems in this game are just really a joke. I mean, even the hacking. You know how you hack things? You look at it, and then you hit L1. And you hold it down for like 5 minutes. Or like 5 seconds, I mean. It's a joke. It's so boring. I don't know about everybody else. I actually like hacking mini games and things like that in games. I love lock-picking mini games, and I love the hacking mini games from the Bethesda games and things like that. Those are fun, and they add a bit of challenge. This game would have benefited actually so much from like a skill system, a la like System Shock 2, or something like that, where, or even, Elder Scrolls, right? Where the more that you do things, the better that you become at them, and you get skill points, and you can allocate those skill points. That would have added such a layer to this game of progression and of customization through the gameplay that would have actually made this game maybe close to a 10 out of 10 for me, honestly. Imagine, for instance, that there are doors in the environment that you have to have a certain skill to hack through. Like maybe like you have to have a level 10 lock-picking or hacking ability, for instance, and you start off at level 1, and you're like, I really want to know what's in that door, so I'm going to start hacking a bunch of things and leveling up my hacking ability. That would have been so great. And instead, it's just look at it and hold the L1 button, and it's boring. And you could have even done that. That would, I think, would have even fixed the stealth problem for me, honestly, in a lot of ways. Because, say, for instance, you have to level up your guns, or you have to level up your stealthing, or you can level up your melee abilities and things like that. All of that stuff would have added such a nice, juicy, meaty layer to this game that it's severely lacking, that I think would have kept a lot of people a lot more interested in it. And instead, what you get out of this is just average affair. I mean, really, I don't know what else to say. It's not a bad game. I don't think it's the worst game I've ever played or anything like that, but it is probably the biggest missed opportunity for me in terms of a game. I hate to be negative on it because I was really looking forward to it, but it just seems like a lot of the systems and a lot of the ideas in this game are just half-baked and very casualized. I mean, I get why game journalists are ranting and raving over this game because it's very easy. There's no option to adjust the difficulty at all. And it does. You don't really have to think. There's no critical thinking in this game at all. You follow the objective. You can stealth or shoot. It doesn't matter at all in the slightest. And you don't have to explore the environments because there's nothing to explore there. They're just big and empty. And you go and shoot a guy and then you leave. That's the loop. And you do this over the same 4 levels for what, 8 to 10 hours maybe? And I haven't even gotten started on the PvP. I actually really had a lot of fun with the PvP. Being able to invade other people's games and stuff, super fun. Super fun. I love that concept, love everything about it. Except, it's nearly impossible to actually succeed as an invader because Cole does a lot more damage than Juliana does. Cole has 3 lives compared to Juliana's 1, and your guns just do not hit. They are. I had a sniper rifle. And I had to test this for myself a couple times just to make sure I was right. I saw Colt standing completely still. He wasn't that far away from me. Took out my sniper rifle. I aimed. I shot at his head. Nothing at all. So I took out my revolver and I shot, and it was a dead hit. I mean, half the guns seem so wildly inaccurate for absolutely no reason. They don't really do a lot of damage. It's just incredibly imbalanced. I got one shot by a Colt. One shot, just straight up. He just looked at me and shot me with a shotgun, and I was dead. And then that was it. And then I had to wait another 10 minutes, actual 10 minutes, to find another person to invade because, as it turns out, you can actually just turn off the online portion of the game. You can just turn it off. And you're not. It's not like Dark Souls where you're actually incentivized to play online through being able to find player notes or summon other players to help you out. No, there's no incentive at all for you to play online and be invaded by other people, other than you might be able to kill a player Juliana and get her gun and stuff or her perk. Maybe a bit of residuum, but again, you don't really need those things because they're incredibly easy to get on your own anyways. And even again, you'll probably just get invaded by an AI Juliana, and as I've talked about earlier, the AI is a joke in this game. So, yeah, why would you even bother leaving the online portion on in this game? I mean, what was the point of even implementing it if you're just going to be able to give the players the ability to turn it off? I don't really understand it. There's no incentive at all for you to leave it on. None at all. So, but again, much like the rest of this game, there's really no incentive to play it. I mean, there really isn't. In terms of the stealth, there's no incentive there. There's no incentives. They don't. This game does the worst job in the world of actually making you want to play it, which is sad because underneath all of these problems that I have, there is a good game in here somewhere. There really is. The combat feels good. The guns feel pretty fun. Some of the powers are kind of cool. Well, 2 of the powers are kind of cool. And the aesthetic is really nice in the game. And some of the level design is really nice. But with every single one of these things, they've just completely missed a huge opportunity to actually make you want to play the game. There's no incentive to explore the environments. There's no incentive to stealth. There's no incentive to go run and gun. There's no incentive to loot for items. There's no incentive to play online with other players. There's no reason to do any of these things. If there's no fun incentive there either, really. There's no fun to be had doing these things either. It just, when you're going stealth, you just feel like you're wasting time. And I just don't really understand what the point of all of this was. But I don't know. So if I have to review Deathloop and give it a score, I would give it maybe a 7 out of 10. Buy it when it's like $20 on sale, maybe buy it, pick it up in a year for $20. It's hard for me to recommend it though with as many problems that the game has, and I don't really know what these game journalists are deriving from this game, other than a fat paycheck from Bethesda and Microsoft. This is no 10 out of 10. There's not even close to a 10 out of 10. There's so many problems that this game has from just a game design standpoint, and people act as if this whole thing is very innovative and revolutionary. And I'm sorry, there's nothing revolutionary about playing the same 4 maps over and over again. There's nothing revolutionary about making big empty maps with nothing to explore or do in them. There's nothing revolutionary about having half-baked game design ideas in your game. I hate to be hard on it. I really wanted to like this game, but at the end of the day, I just can't recommend it. So check it out at your own risk. I'm Beardson Beardley. This is Beardson Reviews, signing out. Peace.